Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network.
Hello, football friends. This is Darren Hayes of the Pigskin Dispatch podcast, and I'd like to invite you to the portal of positive football history, Pigskin Dispatch and pigskindispatch.com. We talk about everything that centers around the game of American football, expert discussions, the origins of the games, the great players, teams, and coaches, and more, and some great guests and insights from experts. We have new episodes 3 to 4 times a week, and you can find us on sportshistorynetwork.com, pigskindispatch.com, or your favorite podcast provider.
How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/podcasts. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcasts. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast. This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Yesterday's Sports on the Sports History Network. Last week, we had part 1 of the 1969 Baltimore Orioles. Today, we will continue with part 2. We will pick it up at the start of the World Series game number 1, Orioles versus Mets. Don Buford got the Birds on the scoreboard first with a solo home run. Baltimore scored 3 more runs in the bottom of the 4th, and Mets manager Gil Hodges removed Tom Seaver after the 5th inning. The Mets scored a run in the top of the 7th inning, and relievers Don Cardwell and Ron Taylor held the Orioles scoreless for the remainder of the game. But their 4 runs were enough for a 4-1 victory. Mike Cuellar pitched a complete game and allowed only 6 hits. After winning 4 games in a row against quality opponents, the Orioles were feeling confident. Maybe too confident. Dave McNally and Jerry Koosman were slated as the starting pitchers for Game 2. Neither team could generate much offense in the first 3 innings, but in the bottom of the 4th, Don Clendenin hit a solo home run to give the Mets a 1-0 lead. Meanwhile, Jerry Koosman held the Orioles hitless for 6 full innings. Paul Blair broke up the no-hitter with a single in the 7th inning. Blair then stole second base and was driven in by Brooks Robinson. But in the top of the 9th inning, the Mets scored a run to take a 2-1 lead. But Baltimore wasn't done yet. With 2 outs, Frank Robinson and Boog Powell drew walks, knocking Jerry Koosman out of the game. But reliever Ron Taylor got Brooks Robinson to ground out, evening the series 1-1. Despite losing Game 2, the Orioles felt confident about winning Game 3, with one of the best pitchers in baseball on the mound. Jim Palmer had a 2.34 ERA and a 16-4 record, despite missing almost 2 months of the season with a back injury. But the Mets rocked Palmer early and led 3-0 after 2 innings. The big bats of Baltimore got hot in the 4th inning. Frank Robinson singled, and Boog Powell got Robinson to third base with a single of his own. Catcher Elrod Hendricks drilled a Gary Gentry pitch to deep left center, but Tommy Agee robbed him with an amazing diving catch. The Mets added another run in the 6th inning, but the Orioles were far from done. They loaded the bases in the 7th inning and Gentry was removed in favor of reliever Nolan Ryan. Paul Blair hit a shot to right center field, but again, Agee made a diving catch to end the inning. The Mets added another run in the 8th and won 5-0. It wasn't so much that the Orioles were playing poorly as the Mets playing above anyone's expectations. The Game 4 pitching matchup was a rematch between Mike Cuellar and Tom Seaver. In the second inning, Cuellar gave up a solo home run to Don Clendenin. From that point on, both pitchers showed why they were Cy Young Award winners, as neither team could score a run. The Orioles finally scored a run in the top of the 9th inning, and would have scored more if not for a spectacular catch by right fielder Ron Swoboda. The Mets were held scoreless in the bottom of the 9th, and the game went into extra innings. In the bottom of the 10th, the Mets had runners on first and second base. Pinch hitter J.C. Martin bunted, and relief pitcher Pete Richards fielded it and threw to first for what would have been an easy out. But the ball hit Martin on the wrist and bounced into right field. Pinch runner Ron Gasper scored from second base, and the Mets won 2-1. One could certainly not blame the Orioles pitching for the losses. The Orioles weren't hitting. Some of their offensive struggles were due to the Mets' outstanding pitching. And even when their bats did get hot, they were robbed of scoring runs by the Mets' defense. In Game 5, Jerry Koosman, winner of Game 2, got the start for the Mets, while Dave McNally started for Baltimore. McNally shut down the Mets in the first 2 innings and hit a 2-run home run in the top of the 3rd inning. Frank Robinson added a solo shot to give the Orioles an early 3-0 lead. McNally had only allowed 3 hits through 5 innings, but in the 6th, Don Clendenin hit a 2-run homer, and the Mets were only 1 run behind. Meanwhile, Koosman had only let up 1 hit since the 3rd inning. Another unlikely hero emerged for the Mets in the bottom of the 7th inning. Backup shortstop Al Weiss, who hit only 7 home runs in his 10-year career, drilled one to deep left field to tie the game. Jerry Koosman shut down the Orioles in the top of the 8th, and the Mets scored 2 runs in the bottom of the inning off reliever Eddie Watt. Frank Robinson drew a walk to lead off the 9th inning, but after that, Koosman shut them down and the Mets won the game and the series. The Orioles' magical season was over. It wasn't supposed to end this way, but it did. The Orioles proved they were a great team by winning the World Series the following season and another American League pennant in 1971. Still, no Orioles fan will ever forget the disappointment of losing a series that everyone expected them to win. Okay, that will conclude today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and God bless.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, But as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.